Good morning. Welcome to Art with Mrs. K on Valentine's Day. I've been teaching this painting all week in intercession for schools, and I wanted to go ahead and give you guys the lesson because it was Abraham Lincoln's birthday this week. It was a lot of fun, and the kids from preschool up to all the way up did so good. Broke it down into four easy steps, and I wanted you to be able to teach this in your class to students. So I am going to put the directions here, the supplies I used, and if you would like the PDF of Abraham Lincoln's face that I created, this is the one painted in. I also created one that was just an outline for the kids to paint in, which you will see me do. That's the first step. So here we go. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, to start off, I always love to share, if I can find it with something that inspires me, a quote. Abraham Lincoln inspires me in every way. But this is one of my favorite quotes by him. Folks are usually about as happy as they make their minds up to be. And I love that. There's definitely circumstances in our lives that can be trying and difficult, but we get to choose how happy we can be through it, and how we can. It really does take work, but I really love that. I think that Abraham Lincoln mastered being able to be positive in difficult times, and he had many. So this is the painting I did at the beginning of the week, and I can already see things that I did wrong here that I will hopefully be able to teach you not to do, but that's okay. It still looks awesome, and I don't even mind that there are some mistakes there. I found this awesome paintbrush set, and I will put the link in the description if you want to get it. It was super affordable. I think it had like 18, I'm just trying to guess, of each of these brushes. And they're actually a pretty good quality. I am kind of impressed. And the kids, I've had them about a year, and I've been teaching classes around the school district a year now, and they've done pretty good. I find that I'm using this little, probably number 4 brush the very most, and this one the least, but it's super handy when you have big things like the backs of this paper, or if you want to prime your painting before you start. So here we go. Good brushes. I have been using tempera paint. Doesn't necessarily have to be a name brand, although you know that I see that I have that. And what I have been doing is I buy a kit of all the colors, and then I go on and I'm buying a gallon of each color to refill this, because it's so much easier to pour from these bottles. So for this picture, the main colors we're going to need are brown. Brown and white and black. Those are the 3 colors. And then obviously for his bow tie and background, you can see I used a little yellow here and there, but that's totally not even necessary. The other thing that I have found that is so helpful in teaching these art classes is I found these little bead containers at Walmart for $1.25. They have 10 compartments, and you can see how gnarly this one has gotten from teaching every day this week to about 55 kids a day, 3 or 4 different classes. When it gets pretty bad, then I can just wipe out a spot with a brush and clean it out the best I can. But a lot of times when it starts to get low, I'll just refill it. And if the kids don't dig too deep, they won't get to the mixed parts. And I really encourage them to not mix the paints in the tray, to mix on a little plate if needed. But very seldom do I have them mix on a plate. This is one of the few lessons. So I'm going to be using this container, and I'll set it there so you can see. This is just a little $4 frame I got at IKEA that anytime I'm teaching now I can frame my picture. So here we go. Let's start with the black outlines, and it really does help to See, you're going to do his hair. This is kind of a highlight in the hair, as you'll see in the other painting. But a lot of times the kids miss these really amazing bushy eyebrows and actually eyeballs. It's such a cool silhouette of his eyes and eyeballs. I've got a lot of paint on my brush and don't necessarily need that much. But tempera really does paint so much like acrylic. If you're painting in acrylic, that works too. You could watercolor paint this. I drew the drawings, like I said, and then I took them to a print shop and I had them print them on nicer paper. It's not necessarily watercolor paper, it's pretty smooth, but it's much thicker than just regular copy paper. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the rest of this. The two parts that I'm noticing a lot of kids missing though is the nose shadow and the eye shadows. Because if they miss that, he'll look like a skeleton. And maybe some kids think that's cool. It is kind of cool. So down here, he's got a black jacket. So you're going to do the jacket, the beard, the hair, and the eyes and nose. In my drawing, I filled in the lips already. Okay, there we have, I painted in the black outlines. And you know, I always forget this part, and as teachers, maybe you won't, but I like to have the kids sign their work first on the bottom in a Sharpie. If you're using acrylic, I would sign afterwards. But here's the cool thing about tempera is if they accidentally or intentionally paint over their name, tempera can be pretty forgiving where my name is concerned. I left that on this painting, but if the kids paint over it, I just wipe it off for their name side. Whenever I'm painting, I don't like to use paper towel. I just go through too much and I can't do it. So I cut up my old kitchen towels, and about this size is perfect for kids. Here's the other reason I paint with tempera. You're going to notice I don't have any water here. I don't use water when I use tempera because, like acrylic, it doesn't dry in. My sweet dog is in here, and there's a dog hair. I'm getting out of my paint. You might get to hear him bark at some point. Tempera doesn't dry like acrylic. It will not harden like acrylic does. It will harden on your brush, but you can take it later and wash it out. So as we're painting in class with, I paint with tempera, so we don't have to use water. I swear there's always somebody that spills. So I just have them wipe their brush off on the towel. Some of them get pretty OCD about wiping it a ton, and it's hard for them to have a dirty brush, but it's okay. They'll get over it. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start the face. All right, my paint is not completely dry. I put it on pretty thick, as you can see maybe from some of this angles. And that's going to be the case as you teach sometimes, and that's okay. Some of the kids don't like that maybe the black will get into their paint, but it's okay. So I pulled up another picture that I did while I was teaching. This is one of them. I just wanted you to see the variety of how every time I taught it, he turned out a little differently, but he still looked like Abraham Lincoln, and his ear on this side changed every time. It was like all the way to his chin there. And then finally I was like, okay, his ear actually goes, I figured out where it should go to. So this, I'm going to leave this one here because it's probably the best example of his ear on the, I guess this is the left side for us, but it's on his right. Okay, so here we go. We're going to paint this in 3 different colors. We have, say it with me, a shadow, a mid-tone, and a highlight. Shadow, mid-tone, highlight. And anytime we're doing a painting, we want to look and see what side, where the light is coming from. Is it coming from above, below? In this case, it's coming from his right side. And so the right side of his face is in light, and the left side of his face is more in shadow. And we noticed that our nose, when the light's coming directly side, the nose kind of casts a shadow here that makes a triangle shaped or an upside down triangle highlight on the cheek. So we're going to keep that in mind. I really did just wing it, so it works out either way. So here I'm going to pick up my brown. This is tempera, so I guess if you're using acrylic, this is more like a burnt sienna. And I'm just going to go ahead all the way down the right side of his face and next to his eye. If the kids get a lot on the black, like I showed you with the name, you can just wipe stuff off with your towel. I do that in acrylic constantly also. I'm primarily an acrylic artist, but man, am I loving. I'm going to go ahead and put the shadow in from the corner of his eyebrow down. There's going to be a shadow cast from his nose also. So we're going to just kind of fill that in. And under his eye, we'll give him a little shadow. And we'll fill in, this is kind of like the skin around the top of his eye. Here's the brown part of his eyeball. Would that be the iris? Okay, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm winging it here. Not too stressed. I'm just going down all the way down on the right side of his face. Now this is actually his bottom lip. It's not his teeth. I'm gonna just color in that side of his bottom lip. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this over a little more, kind of just halfway over his eyebrow maybe. And you can see I'm just kind of using a dry brush to feather it. It's okay if you don't do that. They can seriously slop on them. I found that less is more though. The first day I taught, the kids were really globbing on the paint and it just completely covered up all the black lining. And we had to really dig for the eyes for a few people. All right, so now that we have that shadow established, I'm gonna actually, I haven't really cleaned my brush totally off. I just wiped it. But on this side of the face, his beard kind of connects to his lamb chops. What do we call that? Way down, his goatee down here. I guess that was his sideburns. So I'm just kind of feathering in just lightly some of this brown on this side of his face to show the curvature of his face. And then maybe go a little bit farther back. But here, this little loop that kind of sticks out, that is the top of his ear. And your ear goes from the top of your eyebrow to about the bottom of your nose. And so the bottom of his sideburn here is about the bottom of the ear, and just come straight down from that loop down to where the sideburn is. Now, because this is in mostly highlight, I'm just kind of feathering in an ear and giving a little shadow where the inside of the ear would be. And maybe that's why he's got a little shadow on this side of his face, because of his hair casting the shadow over his ear. Okay, there you go. So little bits on that side, pretty much dry brush that. So for the next color, we're just gonna, with our dirty brush wiped off so we're not filling the white with brown, I'm gonna grab a scoop of white and I'm just gonna kind of mix it in one spot. Here's another thing kids do often. They end up painting their whole plate and they can't figure out why there's no paint to put on their picture. You can see that my brush didn't really have a whole lot of paint left in the bristles, which surprised me. So I kind of just do a little corner at a time of one color and maybe a little corner at a time of the other color. I love flat brushes for this reason, to just be able to dip a corner in. And then I just mix in one little area so I don't paint all my paint onto the plate. And there's my mid-tone. It's midway between brown and white. Thus, mid-tone is the name. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint this in all the way. The mid-tone goes in the middle. Let's just put it right down. And honestly, you guys, I could just paint this on so fast and it's fine. I'm going to try not to totally, I'm going to feather it out a little bit like I did with the shadow. So when I put the highlight on, it maybe looks a little more feathered. Now I'm going to come down. This is actually going to be like the bridge of his nose right here, right? And that is one more thing that I'm going to just fill in that little nostril right there, the outside of the nostril. We got a nostril there. There's the bridge of his nose. I'm going to get some more paint. I'm going to go right under the shadow of his nose, right in them on the bottom lip. This is the shadow cast from his bottom lip, and then right under his bottom lip into on the skin between his lip and his beard. And you can see I picked up a little black. Didn't matter. Just blend it in, let it be. Okay, there is kind of our mid-tone. One thing I forgot is I really like this shadow over here under this eye. I forgot that I really wanted a regular shadow under this eye also. Casting, this is the skin, the iris of the eye, and then I kind of, you can fill all of those in. You could leave some white. You can add white back if you want. But if I wipe off enough, you're going to be able to still see that. Our eyes are in a socket in our skull, and so it really does, and Abraham had pretty deep socket eyes. When you look at pictures of him, you can tell. And so I kind of just feel like I need to shade around that eye socket a little bit. Now, it's not necessary, but there's another shadow. Okay, now that I've done my mid-tone, I'm going to go ahead and just pick up white again. And I'm going to pick a new spot. And I'm just going to use what's on my brush already and wipe the white off and blend it. I do like that color. I feel like it's a little bit too light. So I'll pick up some of the mid-tone if I have any left. If not, then pick up a tiny bit of brown. And I'm going to mix it with the mid-tone. All right, so I think I'm lighter than I was on the mid-tone. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and paint on the highlight on the right side of his face. Anytime I paint over some of the black, if I don't want it, I just wipe it right off with my finger or a towel. Tempera does not ruin your clothes. It doesn't. It's super easy to wash up from the tables with just water. It is such a forgiving medium to use for kids. I love it so much. Painting in the ear, painting all the way down the right side of the face. You can see that in some place I'm picking up dark, there's the highlight on that cheek. Don't forget to fill that in. I'm picking up a little black, and it fluctuates some of the color, but it's okay. And like I said, less is more, not to have it globbed on your brush, kind of dry brushing it, and if you run out, then pick up a little more. Okay, I think I'm happy with it. There we have Abraham Lincoln and the 3 colors. Simple, simple, and fun. Now, all I have to do is just wipe off my brush, and then right here, Abraham has a bow tie on. And in the photograph of him, it's actually kind of crooked. I was always like, what is going on with this bow tie here? I think I'm gonna make his bow tie blue this time. This is something I let the kids choose. They get to choose what color they want to make his bow tie and what color they want to paint the background. He's wearing a white shirt, so this is the collar of his white shirt. The bow tie goes to right there. And it's there you go. It's kind of abstract. So the only thing left to do now is they can either use this brush if that's all you've got, or if you've got the bigger brushes, this is when I would give my kids a bigger brush so they can paint the background a little faster in whatever color they choose. I actually, let's go with red this time. This will be kind of patriotic. Now you kind of cut in. This is the kind of fun thing about doing a background is you can cut in and around, and over here on this side especially, it's going to be important. But as you go around, just kind of take your brush and outline again the shape of his head with it. And then it's a lot faster to fill in the paint. On this side, it's going to be important that we cut in right around his ear that we had to kind of create. And then we can just outline his jacket. Go ahead and outline his head. Pretty fun, pretty fast. By outlining first, then it makes it really easy to paint the rest of the background without getting paint on him. And you know, one of my favorite techniques is to avoid outlining and just go with one brush around his head and leave it white close to his head. It's kind of a really cool effect to just leave like a white highlight around if you want to try that too. It makes his head really pop. It's super cool looking. I'll just go ahead with a second coat of red and leave that lighter for that semi effect. Now I printed these onto 11 by 17 paper. You can print them on any size paper you want. That's the size that I'm working with here. My original drawing was done on 12 by 18 paper in my print shop. This was the size paper they had, so I went with it. And you can see that in order to get the whole of the paper, you're going to paint on the table. And it's just going to be fine. It wipes off so easily. Now all I have to do is to clean up. I have the kids bring me their brushes and I have them put them upside down in a water. And I put this in another little bucket and I wash out the brushes. And then I just throw these towels in my washing machine and wash them and dry them each night. They just come right out clean. I use these for acrylic too. It does stain a lot more on acrylic, but I love them. Okay, and there we go. Abraham Lincoln. I can't wait to see what you do. If you have any further questions or anything I missed, leave a comment. The one thing I didn't paint on here is the highlight if you wanted to add a color on there.